My name's Derek, and I'm 35. Recently, I've come to terms with a brutal truth. Being married to someone who seems more interested in convenience than connection can sap the life right out of you. Let me rewind a bit to when things were exciting, or at least they seemed that way. When I met Martha, she was vibrant, always on the go, and full of this infectious energy that made everything feel like an adventure. We couldn't get enough of each other back then. Every smile, every shared moment, felt like we were the only two people in the world. We got married, and for a while things stayed that way. But as time passed, I started noticing a change. Fast forward 5 years into our marriage, and it was like living with a stranger. The warmth, the spark, it was all gone. One night, after another evening of her brushing me off with a tired wave, I decided to bring up the elephant in the room. "Martha, we need to talk," I said, sitting down beside her on the couch. She looked up from her phone, sighing as if I had just asked her to solve a complex math problem. "What's wrong, Derek?" "This," I said, motioning between us. "We're barely connecting anymore. We're more like roommates than a couple." Her response was cool, almost clinical. "Derek, you know I'm busy with work. It's not like I'm ignoring you on purpose." I tried to keep my frustration in check. "It's not just about work, Martha. It feels like you're not interested in us anymore." She shrugged, her attention already drifting back to her phone. "Marriage isn't always about sex. Sometimes it's just about being there." Her words hit me harder than I expected. Was this what we had become? A partnership with no intimacy, no connection? I didn't expect every day to be fireworks, but I didn't think it would fizzle out this quickly either. Over the next few months, I tried everything I could think of to reignite the spark. I planned romantic dinners, cleaned the house without being asked, even suggested we take a weekend trip together. Each time I was met with a polite smile and a vague promise of maybe later. But later never seemed to come. One night I suggested we see a counselor, thinking maybe a third party could help us bridge the gap. Her response? A dismissive laugh. "Derek, we don't need therapy. We just need to get through this phase." It didn't feel like a phase to me. It felt permanent. And the worst part? I started to realize Martha was comfortable with the way things were. She wasn't interested in changing a thing. It wasn't until a few months later that I began to notice something that shifted everything for me. It happened slowly at first, like a shadow creeping up behind you. At first, I wasn't sure what to make of it, but it was too consistent to ignore. Martha's habits, small, seemingly insignificant details, started to change, and I couldn't help but feel unsettled. She began spending more time with her friends, going out more frequently, staying late at work, and coming home later than usual. The weekend plans that once involved us became increasingly filled with social events where I wasn't invited. Over the next few weeks, I caught her texting someone at odd hours. Late at night when I was trying to sleep, I could hear the tapping of her phone against the nightstand. It wasn't just the time that bothered me. It was the secrecy. I asked her about it once, trying to keep my tone casual. "Hey, who are you texting so much lately?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe of the bedroom. She didn't look up from her phone. "Oh, it's just a work thing, nothing to worry about." But there was something in her voice that didn't sit right with me. I let it slide for a while, telling myself I was just being paranoid, that I was overthinking things. After all, we had been together for years and we didn't have secrets. Or at least I thought we didn't. One night, after I had gone to bed, I woke up to a strange noise coming from the living room. I went out to investigate, figuring maybe she had dropped something or needed help with something. But when I peeked around the corner, I saw something that made my stomach drop. Martha was on the phone, her voice soft and hushed, but I could still hear the excitement in it. She was talking to someone, a man, and they were laughing together. The way she laughed, it was a sound I hadn't heard in a long time. It was the kind of laughter that felt real, like something only shared between two people who were connected in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. I stood frozen for a few moments, unsure of what to do, how to process what I was witnessing. I walked into the living room and, my voice shaky, I asked her, "Who are you talking to?" She seemed a little surprised at my question, but quickly recovered. "Oh, it's just a coworker," she said, her voice calm but a bit rushed. "I'll talk to you soon, goodbye." And with that, she quickly ended the call, her hand pressing the phone off with almost mechanical precision. I stood there for a moment, still processing what had just happened, before I turned around and walked back to the bedroom. As I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the thoughts started to creep into my mind. What was really going on? I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She had told me it was just a coworker, but I didn't fully believe her. The way she had quickly ended the conversation, the urgency in her voice, it didn't seem like a simple work call. I began to wonder if maybe it wasn't just a coworker after all. What if there was something more to it? I tried to push the thought aside, but it clung to me, filling me with suspicion. It felt like there was something I wasn't seeing, something she wasn't telling me. Over the next few days, I started paying closer attention to Martha. She was spending even more time out with friends, going out for drinks after work, or staying late at the office. I told myself that she was just busy, that things were hectic, but something in my gut told me otherwise. There was a change in her behavior, a shift that didn't sit right with me. Every time she came home late or mentioned another spontaneous outing, the feeling of doubt in my chest grew stronger. One afternoon, I got home early from work. I hadn't expected to be home so soon, and as I walked into the hallway, I noticed something strange. Martha's phone was sitting on the table, unattended, face up. It was unusual for her to leave it like that. I had never been one to snoop, but for some reason, I found myself walking toward it. My heart raced as I hesitated for a moment, torn between my own instinct and the thought of betraying her trust. But curiosity gnawed at me and I couldn't stop myself. Martha was in the shower, getting ready to go out that night. I knew she wouldn't be back for a while, and that gave me the opportunity to take a quick look. I glanced at the screen and my breath caught in my throat. There was a message from someone named Chris. The message was simple, but it was enough to make my heart skip a beat. "Can't wait to see you tonight. I've been thinking about you all day." I stood there frozen, the weight of the words sinking in. I could hear the sound of water running in the bathroom, and my pulse raced. I quickly pulled myself together and put the phone back, trying to act normal. Just as I set it down, the sound of the shower stopped, and Martha emerged, wrapped in a towel, her wet hair dripping onto her shoulders. "You're home early," she said with a surprised smile, wiping her face with a towel. I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yeah, I finished up early today." She gave me a quick glance before turning to dry her hair. "I'll be heading out soon. Got a few friends I'm meeting." I took a deep breath, my mind racing with questions. "With who exactly?" I asked, trying to keep the suspicion from creeping into my voice. She paused, glancing over at me with a faint smile. "Just some friends from work. You know, nothing special." "Good," I said, though I didn't believe her for a second. I could feel the lie hanging in the air. I knew she wasn't telling me everything. I watched her finish getting ready, my stomach twisted with the thought of Chris, the message still replaying in my mind. When she finally left the house, I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my keys, slipped out the door quietly, and followed her. Something told me I needed to see for myself who she was really meeting. I followed her at a distance, trying to stay unnoticed. I didn't want her to realize I was tailing her. She drove to a bar downtown, one we had visited a few times before. At first, I thought it was just a casual hangout with her friends. But then, as I saw her near the entrance talking to someone, my stomach dropped. It was Chris, the man from the message. They were standing close to each other, laughing and chatting as if they were the only ones there. I watched, frozen in place, my heart racing. Then, without warning, they leaned in, and to my horror, they kissed. It wasn't a casual peck. It was full of passion, the kind of kiss that made my blood run cold. I couldn't look away. I didn't know how to process what I was seeing. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I turned and walked back to my car, the sound of my footsteps echoing in my ears. I needed to be far away from the scene, far away from the suffocating reality that was unfolding in front of me. Once I got home, I paced around the living room, the weight of the situation pressing down on me like 1,000 pounds. What was I supposed to do now? How was I supposed to face Martha? I didn't have the answers, but what I did know was that I couldn't go on pretending like everything was fine. I couldn't ignore the truth any longer. And when she came home, I would make sure she knew that I knew everything. The door creaked open, and I heard her footsteps as she entered. She was home. I stood in the living room, my fists clenched at my sides, my heart racing as I prepared for what was sure to be the hardest conversation of my life. "Martha," I said when she entered the room, my voice steady but strained. She froze, looking at me with a faint, nervous smile. "Hey babe, I'm back." I didn't respond. I just stared at her, watching the way she avoided eye contact, the way she shifted uncomfortably. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. "I saw him," I said, my voice cold, each word coming out like a knife. "What are you talking about?" she asked, confusion in her tone. "Stop pretending you don't know what I'm talking about. I saw the message. I followed you, and I saw you with him." "You followed me?" she snapped, her eyes narrowing. "What's that? A new thing? So wherever I go now, you're just going to follow me?" Her voice dripped with anger. "Are you out of your mind?" I responded, my frustration boiling over. "I'm telling you, I saw you kissing another man, that you're cheating on me. And this is your answer?" "Yeah? What about it?" she retorted, crossing her arms. "What about it? We're married, Martha. And you're asking what about it? You're supposed to be with me. Only me. So what if we're married? If I want to sleep with other guys, I will. I don't owe you exclusivity," she shot back with an air of defiance. "I thought you were more open-minded than this, and I'm just sleeping with them. It's not like I have feelings for them." "That's the point of a marriage. Exclusivity," I shouted, my frustration reaching a breaking point. "But what am I talking about? The last few months, there's been no intimacy between us." "Derek, our marriage isn't just about intimacy. It's more than that," she said, her tone dismissive, as though it was nothing. "What intimacy? There's no intimacy at all," I said, my voice cracking with frustration. "So you prefer sleeping with other men rather than your husband?" "It's fine," she replied coolly, shrugging. "We use protection." I laughed bitterly, disbelief creeping into my voice. "Are you listening to yourself? I can't believe this." "Why are you acting like it's such a big deal?" she shot back, her voice laced with annoyance. But as I stood there unfazed, my gaze cold and steady, she began to falter. My silence, my unwavering composure chipped away at her defenses, and eventually she broke. Her anger, once sharp and venomous, slowly melted into something softer, something fragile, almost desperate, like a dam ready to burst. "You want the truth? Fine. I needed a break, okay? I was bored and I wanted to sleep with other men. I was trying to fill a void, but that doesn't mean I don't love you." "What do you mean you were bored? And this is your solution? Really? Sleeping with other guys?" I asked, my voice shaking with hurt and betrayal. "Martha, if you think this isn't a big deal, I don't even know what to say to you. I'll stop sleeping with other guys. I think I'm ready to start a family. I want to have kids with you, Derek." "Oh, so now you're going to stop and you think that will fix everything?" "I didn't want to hurt you, Derek. I didn't know what else to do. I thought this would make me feel better, but it didn't." She looked away, her voice faltering. "I made a terrible mistake. It's too late now, Martha. There's no turning back after what you did." "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice softening with concern. "I mean, I can't do this anymore." I took a deep breath, feeling my heart breaking. "It's over, Martha. I'm filing for divorce." "What? I'm telling you that I want to have a family with you and you're going to leave me. How can you do this to me?" "So now I'm the bad guy? You cheated on me, Martha, and I can't forgive you for this. We're done." With that, I turned on my heel and walked into the bedroom. I grabbed a bag and began packing a few essentials: clothes, toiletries, my laptop. Martha stood in the doorway, watching me in silence, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "You're really leaving?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," I replied without looking at her. "I can't stay here." I zipped up the bag, slung it over my shoulder, and without another word walked out of the house. The night air was cool and still as I got into my car and drove to a nearby hotel. The reality of what had just happened weighed heavily on me, but I knew it was the right decision. The next morning, I called a lawyer to start the divorce process. The lawyer was professional but sympathetic, guiding me through the necessary steps. Over the following weeks, the divorce proceedings began, and Martha and I communicated only through our attorneys. The process was painful but straightforward. Martha didn't contest the divorce, and we divided our assets with minimal conflict. She kept the house, while I took my share and moved into a small apartment on the other side of town. It wasn't easy to let go of the life we had built together. The memories, the plans, the dreams, they all felt like ashes now. But as time passed, I began to heal. I focused on my work, spent time with friends, and slowly rebuilt my life. Martha and I never spoke again, and I heard through mutual acquaintances that she had moved on. So did I, eventually. The pain of betrayal lingered for a while, but it became a distant memory as new experiences and relationships filled the void. In the end, I realized that sometimes, letting go is the only way to find peace. And in that peace, I found myself again. Thank you for watching. I'm Martin, the kind of guy who believes in working hard to build the life you want. That's how I was raised. You show up, you grind, and eventually things fall into place. At least that's what I always believed. Elizabeth and I had been married for 3 years. We were still figuring out the rhythm of married life. I loved her, no doubt about that, and I wanted to give her the best life I could. That's why I pushed myself so hard. Long hours, weekends spent working instead of relaxing, always thinking, if I just work a little harder, things will get better for us. Every morning I'd wake up at 5 a.m., kiss her on the forehead, and head out. By the time I got home, I was too drained to do much more than eat, shower, and crash. I wasn't proud of that, but I figured she understood. After all, I was doing it for us, for her. When I wasn't working, I tried to make up for the lost time. Weekend trips, fancy dinners, surprise gifts. I wasn't perfect, but I showed up the best way I knew how. But over the last few months, something had shifted. Elizabeth started feeling distant. At first, I thought she was just tired or maybe bored with the monotony of daily life. I didn't press her about it, and I thought, if I just keep showing her how much I care, everything will go back to normal. I was wrong. One night, I got home a little earlier than usual. I walked in and found Elizabeth sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. "Hey," I said, dropping my bag by the door. "How was your day?" She barely looked up. "Fine." It was like that a lot lately. She'd give me one-word answers, and her smile never quite reached her eyes. "Everything okay?" I asked, sitting down beside her. "Yeah," she said, putting her phone down. "Just tired, I guess." I nodded and leaned back, trying not to push her. But I noticed she was spending a lot more time on her phone. She'd smile at messages or quickly put it down when I walked in. "Who are you texting?" I asked one evening, trying to keep my tone casual. She hesitated. "Just an old friend." Her answer didn't sit right with me, but I didn't want to accuse her of anything. "Oh, cool. Who?" Elizabeth sighed like I was asking too much. "It's Mia. You don't know her." I let it go, even though I had a sinking feeling in my gut. That Friday, I decided to do something special for her. I left work early, stopped by the market, and picked up ingredients for her favorite meal: steak, garlic mashed potatoes, and tiramisu for dessert. When Elizabeth got home, the table was set with candles, music playing softly in the background. "What's all this?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Just wanted to do something nice," I said, pulling out her chair. "For us." She smiled, actually smiled, and for a moment I thought maybe I'd done something right. "This is sweet, Martin," she said, sitting down. "You didn't have to go through all this trouble." "I wanted to. You deserve it." Dinner started off great. We laughed, talked about random things, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like we were connecting. Then she reached for her third glass of wine. By the time she was on her fourth, the mood had shifted. "You're such a good guy, Martin," she said, swirling the wine in her glass. "Thanks," I said, smiling. "I try." "That's why I married you," she continued. "You're steady, reliable." Her words didn't sit right, but I stayed quiet. "I mean, you're not exciting," she said, her voice trailing off. "But you're good for me." I put my fork down, staring at her. "What does that mean, Elizabeth?" She hesitated, then sighed. "It means, I don't know. I guess I've been feeling like something's missing." "What's missing?" She looked at me, her eyes glassy from the wine. "Passion, excitement, that spark. I'm not attracted to you like I used to." I leaned back in my chair, my appetite gone. "So what are you saying?" "I met someone," she blurted out. My heart stopped. I just stared at her, unable to process the words. "What?" I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. "It wasn't supposed to happen," she said quickly. "But it did, and I didn't know how to tell you." I sat there stunned as Elizabeth spoke. She told me she met him at a mutual friend's party. She said he was spontaneous, confident, and everything I wasn't. "It just happened," she said, avoiding my eyes. "How long?" I asked, my voice cold and flat. Her eyes darted away. "A few months," she whispered. "A few months," I repeated, the words tasting bitter. "So while I've been working late, trying to make things better for us, you've been—" I stopped, unable to finish the sentence. "I didn't plan for this to happen," she said, tears welling up in her eyes. "I swear, Martin, I never wanted to hurt you." "Who is he?" I asked, my voice sharp now. "He's no one," she replied quickly. "It's not about him, it's about me. I've just been feeling lost." "Lost?" I repeated, anger bubbling up now. "So instead of talking to me, you went and found someone else?" "I'm sorry," she said, her voice breaking. "I didn't mean for it to get this far. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." "Didn't mean to?" I snapped. "You've been sneaking around behind my back for months, Elizabeth. That's not something you just don't mean to do." She broke down then, tears streaming down her face. "I hate myself for this, Martin. I do. I didn't know how to stop. I felt like I was drowning, and he made me feel alive again." I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Alive?" I said, my voice shaking with anger. "Do you have any idea what I've been doing for the past few months? I've been busting my butt trying to make things better for us, working late, planning trips, doing everything I can to make you happy. And this is how you repay me?" She didn't say anything, just sat there sobbing into her hands. For a moment I wanted to keep yelling, to keep throwing every ounce of my anger and pain at her. But instead, I turned and walked out of the dining room, leaving her alone with her wine and her tears. That night I slept on the couch. Not because she asked me to, but because I couldn't stand to be near her. As I lay there staring at the ceiling, I thought about everything we'd been through. The good times, the bad times, and now, this. By morning I knew what I had to do. I got up quietly and went to the bedroom. She was still asleep, curled up under the covers like nothing was wrong. I stood there for a moment, looking at her. Part of me wanted to wake her up and scream, to make her feel the same pain I was feeling, but I knew it wouldn't change anything. Instead, I grabbed a suitcase from the closet and started packing. I didn't take much, just a few clothes, my work laptop, and a couple of things I couldn't leave behind. I was zipping up the bag when I heard her voice. "Martin," she said groggily, sitting up in bed. "What are you doing?" I turned to face her, my expression unreadable. "I'm leaving." Her eyes widened, and she scrambled out of bed. "Wait, what? Why?" I didn't hesitate. "What do you mean, why? You cheated on me, Elizabeth, and you're asking me why I'm leaving?" She paused, looking at me with wide eyes. Can we talk about this?" I shook my head, voice flat. "There's nothing left to say. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Martin, please. I know I screwed up, okay? But we can fix this. I want to fix this." I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. "You want to fix this now? After everything you've done? You should have thought about that before you decided I wasn't enough for you." "You are enough," she said, stepping closer to me. "I don't know why I did what I did, but it doesn't mean I don't love you." "Love?" I said, my voice rising. "You call this love? Lying to me? Sneaking around behind my back? That's not love, Elizabeth. That's selfishness." She reached for my arm, but I pulled away. "Martin, please," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll do anything. Counseling. Whatever you want. Just don't leave." I stared at her, my jaw clenched. For a moment I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that she really was sorry, that we could somehow get past this. But then I remembered the look on her face when she told me about the affair, the way she had tried to justify it, like it was some unavoidable thing that had just happened. "No," I said firmly, picking up my suitcase. "I can't do this anymore, Elizabeth. You broke something in us and it can't be fixed." Her tears fell freely now, But I didn't let myself feel anything. I couldn't. If I let my emotions get the better of me, I might have caved, and I couldn't let that happen. I walked past her and headed for the door. She followed me into the living room, her footsteps quick and desperate. "Martin, wait," she said, grabbing my arm. I stopped and turned to face her one last time. "I loved you," I said quietly. "I gave you everything I had, and it wasn't enough for you." She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. I shook my head and walked out the door without looking back. As I got into my car and started the engine, I felt a wave of emotions hit me all at once. Anger, sadness, relief. My hands trembled on the steering wheel, but I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. Driving away from the house, I realized that the person I used to be, the man who would have done anything to save our marriage, was gone. Elizabeth had shattered him the moment she decided I wasn't enough. I didn't just leave the house that day, I left the marriage behind. I had made my decision, and there was no going back. Over the next few weeks, my life turned into a series of necessary but emotionally draining steps to untangle our lives. The first thing I did was contact a lawyer. I wanted everything to be as clean and straightforward as possible. No drawn-out fights, no ugly arguments. I just wanted it over. The hardest part was cutting ties. I closed our joint bank accounts and opened new ones in my name. I canceled the credit cards we shared and transferred the utilities for the house to her name. Each step felt like severing another thread in a web we had built together. And it hurt. But it was also necessary. Elizabeth tried to contact me during this time. She left voicemails, some pleading, others angry. "Martin, please, just call me back. We can work this out. I know we can. Why are you shutting me out? Don't you even care about what we had?" One night she sent a long email. I opened it, skimmed the first few lines, and then closed it without reading the rest. It wasn't that I didn't care. I cared too much. But I knew that if I let her voice creep back into my life, it would only make things harder. The divorce was finalized quicker than I expected. We agreed on terms without much argument. She kept the house, as well as a modest settlement. I didn't fight her on any of it. The house was just bricks and wood to me now, a hollow shell of what it used to be. She could have it. The day I signed the final papers, I sat in my car for a long time before starting the engine. It was done. Official. Irrevocable. I thought I'd feel a sense of relief, maybe even closure, but instead, there was just this deep, aching emptiness. Elizabeth didn't stop trying to reach me, at least not right away. She sent me messages that ranged from apologies to accusations. "You don't even care, do you?" one text read. "You just walked away like I meant nothing to you." I didn't respond. What was there to say? She had meant everything to me, and that was precisely why I couldn't stay. Eventually, the messages stopped, and I heard that she had moved on. She was now in a relationship with the man she'd been seeing behind my back. The months that followed were difficult. I moved into a small apartment downtown, a far cry from the house we had shared. It was quiet, almost too quiet. I filled the time with work, trying to bury myself in projects and deadlines. But no matter how busy I kept myself, there were moments when the loneliness crept in. A year after the divorce, I heard through mutual friends that Elizabeth wasn't doing so well. The guy she'd left me for had dumped her just 3 months after they started their relationship. She'd blown through her settlement money and was struggling to keep up with the mortgage. She tried to rebuild her life, but nothing seemed to stick. Friends who had supported her at first started drifting away. She was alone. Meanwhile, I was slowly piecing my life back together. I got a promotion at work, started traveling more, and even met someone new, a kind, understanding woman named Sarah. One afternoon, I was at my apartment reading when the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, there she was, Elizabeth. She looked different, tired, worn down, but she still had that same confidence, like she expected me to welcome her with open arms. "Martin," she said softly. "What are you doing here?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "I needed to see you," she said, her voice trembling. I made a mistake." I sighed. "Elizabeth, we've been through this. It's done." "I know," she said, tears welling up in her eyes. "But I can't stop thinking about what I lost, about what I did to you. I was stupid, Martin. I threw away the best thing I ever had." I stared at her, my emotions a mix of pity and anger. "You're right. You did." Can't we just try again? She pleaded. No, I said firmly. You made your choice, Elizabeth. Now you have to live with it. She broke down, sobbing on my doorstep, but I didn't let her in. I hope you find what you're looking for, I said, closing the door. As I sat back down, I felt a strange sense of peace. For the first time in a while, I realized I didn't need closure from her. I'd already found it in myself. Sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away. And sometimes the best gift you can give yourself is knowing when to let go. Thank you for watching. It all started with an argument, like most things do in a marriage. It was mid-December, and we were planning our Christmas break. Miranda wanted to go to her parents' place in her small hometown of Hartwell, where we'd spent the last 2 Christmases. I, on the other hand, wanted to visit my parents in New Haven. Fair is fair, right? 2 years with her family, 1 with mine. Dylan, she said, folding her arms and giving me that no-nonsense look she'd perfected over the years. We always have such a good time at my parents'. They have the big house, the fireplace, the traditions. And what about my parents? I shot back. They've been asking when we'll come for Christmas. My mom keeps dropping hints about how much she misses us. We were just there in the summer. For 2 days, Miranda. 2 days isn't Christmas. She huffed, and I could see the storm brewing. Dylan, I'm going to my parents. If you want to come, great. If not, fine. That's not fair, Miranda, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. You're just deciding for both of us? Well, someone has to. You're impossible to reason with. Reason? That's rich coming from the woman who vetoes anything that isn't her idea. And just like that, the decision was made. I'd go to New Haven. She'd go to Hartwell. We kissed each other goodbye on December 22nd, a little colder than usual, and promised to call every day. The first few days were fine. My parents were thrilled to have me, and I felt good about standing my ground. But something felt off. Miranda wasn't calling as much as she usually did, and when she did, she sounded distracted. Hey, how's everything going over there? I asked during one of our calls, trying to keep it casual. It's fine, she said with a forced laugh. Just busy with all the family stuff. You know how it is. Yeah, I get it. You sure you're okay? You sound weird. I'm fine, Dylan. Just tired from all the running around. Something in her tone didn't sit right with me, but I let it go. It was Christmas after all. Who wants to fight during the holidays? Miranda came back home on December 28th. She looked different. Tired, sure, but also uneasy. Her usual energy, the way she'd hum a tune as she unpacked or excitedly recount every little detail about her trip, was absent. Instead, she was quiet, her movements mechanical, her gaze darting away whenever I tried to meet her eyes. How was Hartwell? I asked as we unpacked her suitcase together. It was fine, she said, her voice clipped. She focused on neatly folding a sweater, avoiding my eyes. You know how it is. Lots of family, lots of food. Anything interesting happen? I pressed, trying to spark a more natural conversation. Nope, same old Hartwell, she replied, shutting the suitcase with a little more force than necessary. I let the conversation drop, but something felt off. Miranda wasn't usually this reserved. Normally, she'd talk my ear off about her family's antics, her dad's terrible jokes, her mom's over-the-top Christmas decorations, or her sister's latest drama. But now, nothing. Just a wall. Over the next week, the unease didn't go away. It grew. Miranda was glued to her phone more than usual, texting or scrolling with a focus that felt deliberate. Whenever I walked into the room, she'd quickly lock the screen and shove the phone into her pocket. During dinner, she barely touched her food. I watched as she pushed her mashed potatoes around the plate, her gaze fixed somewhere in the distance. Is everything okay? I asked one night, trying to sound casual. What? Oh yeah, she said, snapping back to the present. Just tired, that's all. She forced a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. It wasn't like her to brush me off like this. Usually, Miranda couldn't keep a secret to save her life. Now she was like a closed book, every page locked behind a heavy curtain of avoidance. One night I couldn't take it anymore. The silence between us had become unbearable. After dinner, as we sat on the couch, I decided to confront her. Miranda, I said, keeping my voice steady. What's going on with you? She froze for a moment, then looked at me with a carefully neutral expression. Nothing, she said too quickly, her voice a little higher than usual. Why would you think something's wrong? Because you've been acting weird since you got back, I said, leaning forward. Distant, secretive. It's not like you. If something's bothering you, you can tell me. She sighed deeply, rubbing her temples like the weight of the world was pressing down on her. It's just work stress, Dylan, she said, her tone weary. The holidays were supposed to be relaxing, but now I'm back to the grind and it's overwhelming. That's all it is. I frowned. Work stress? That didn't make sense. Miranda loved her job. It had its challenges, sure, but she thrived on them. She was the kind of person who'd come home excited about a tough project or a big meeting. Stress like this was out of character. Miranda, I said gently, you've never let work get to you like this before. Are you sure that's all it is? What else would it be? She snapped, her eyes flashing for a moment before she softened. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to snap. I'm just tired. Her apology felt rehearsed, like she'd anticipated this conversation and had a script ready. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the pieces didn't fit. Something wasn't adding up, and I could feel the distance between us growing like a chasm I couldn't bridge. For the rest of the night, we sat in silence. She scrolled through her phone and I stared at the TV, not really watching. The tension in the room was suffocating. Whatever was going on with Miranda, I knew it wasn't just work stress. And the more I thought about it, the more I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something big. Then came the clinic visit. Miranda told me she was going to the doctor for a routine checkup. No big deal, she said casually over breakfast. Her tone was nonchalant, but I caught the slight tremble in her hands as she stirred her coffee. I watched her leave that morning with a pit in my stomach, though I couldn't quite put my finger on why. When she came back later that afternoon, she looked pale as a ghost. Her usual cheerful demeanor was replaced by a jittery, withdrawn energy. She barely glanced at me as she dropped her bag by the door and headed straight for the bedroom. What did the doctor say? I asked, following her, genuinely concerned. Oh, just some minor things, she said, her voice flat. Nothing to worry about. That was the first outright lie she told me, though I didn't know it at the time. She avoided eye contact, busying herself with tidying up non-existent messes. The conversation ended there, but her behavior stayed with me. A few days later, I was taking out the trash when a crumpled piece of paper caught my eye. It was a receipt from the clinic. My heart sank as I read the words, STD panel, comprehensive testing. I stared at the paper, my pulse pounding in my ears. What the hell was going on? Why would Miranda need to get tested for STDs? My stomach twisted as a horrible thought began to form. That night, Miranda went to bed early, claiming she had a headache. I stayed up, staring at the TV but not really watching. My mind was racing, replaying every strange moment from the past few weeks. Finally, unable to hold back my suspicion any longer, I made a decision I never thought I'd make. I crept into the bedroom, careful not to wake her. Miranda was fast asleep, her phone on the nightstand beside her. My hands trembled as I picked it up and unlocked it. I felt a pang of guilt, but it was drowned out by the gnawing need for answers. The first few messages in her inbox seemed normal. Conversations with her mom, her sister, a few work colleagues. But then I saw a name I didn't recognize, Tom. I hesitated for a moment, staring at the screen. Who was Tom? I'd never heard her mention him before. My stomach churned as I opened the thread, my hands shaking. The first message was from a week before Christmas. Hey Miranda, I heard you're back in Hartwell for the holidays. There's a party at my place on Christmas Eve if you want to stop by. It'd be great to catch up, Tom wrote. Her response came a few hours later. Hey Tom, that sounds like fun. I might swing by if I can sneak away from the family, Miranda replied. I felt my chest tighten as I scrolled further. There were more messages, ones that made my heart pound harder with every word. Tom, December 26th. Last night was amazing, Miranda. I've missed you. How are you today? Miranda. I'm fine, Tom. Just feeling a little weird about everything. I need some time to process. Last night was amazing. I've missed you? What the hell did that mean? I kept scrolling, trying to make sense of it. Then I saw a photo. It wasn't explicit, but it was damning. The two of them at the party standing close. Too close. Miranda's cheeks were flushed. Her arm looped casually around his shoulders. The way they looked at each other made my stomach churn. I couldn't stop myself. I dug deeper, searching for any clue about who this guy was. I opened her contacts, social media, and old photos. That's when I pieced it together. Tom wasn't just some random friend from Hartwell. He was her ex-boyfriend. I sat back, stunned, the phone still clutched in my hands. Tom, the guy she'd been with for years before we met. The guy she never talked about much, brushing off their breakup as ancient history. And now it seemed they'd crossed paths again, more than just crossed paths. The realization hit me like a freight train. Miranda had reconnected with her ex over Christmas, and from the messages I'd seen, it hadn't been innocent. I put her phone back on the nightstand and stumbled into the living room, my mind racing. My chest felt tight, my stomach twisted in knots. The thought of her with someone else, him, made my blood boil. Was this why she'd been acting so strange since she got back? And the STD panel? What did that mean? I spent the rest of the night on the couch, staring at nothing, my mind a storm of anger, confusion, and heartbreak. But one thing was clear. I couldn't ignore this. The next morning I left before Miranda woke up, my mind racing with anger and betrayal. I drove aimlessly for hours, trying to clear my head and make sense of everything. The quiet hum of the engine and the open road gave me little comfort, but it was better than staying in the house. I returned home just after lunch, knowing I couldn't avoid this conversation any longer. I waited for her to come back. By the time the front door opened, I was sitting at the dining table with the crumpled receipt in front of me. I pretended not to know. About Tom, the party, everything. I needed to hear her admit it, even though I already had a pretty good idea. "Miranda," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "What's this?" She stepped inside and froze, her eyes going wide. The color drained from her face as she stared at the receipt, then back at me. "Where did you find that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "In the trash," I replied, my words sharp. "What's going on?" She hesitated, her hands trembling as she slowly lowered herself into the chair across from me. "Dylan, I need to tell you something." "Yeah, you do," I snapped, struggling to keep my composure. Every ounce of strength was required to keep from losing it entirely. Tears welled up in her eyes, but I barely noticed. I could barely look at her. "When I was in Hartwell, I went to this Christmas party. It was at an old friend's house and things got out of hand." "What do you mean, out of hand?" I demanded, leaning forward, my heart pounding in my chest. She faltered, staring down at her hands. "I drank too much. I wasn't thinking clearly. I slept with someone." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. The air seemed to leave the room. My mind raced as I tried to process what she had just said. "You cheated on me?" My voice cracked, barely above a whisper. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't mean for it to happen, Dylan, I swear. It was a mistake, a stupid, horrible mistake." I stood up, feeling the anger bubble up inside me. I couldn't sit still. I couldn't breathe. "A mistake? A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk, Miranda. Sleeping with someone else isn't a mistake. That's betrayal." She was crying harder now, and part of me wanted to comfort her, but the overwhelming pain and fury wouldn't let me. "Who was it? Do I know him?" I demanded, my fists clenched at my sides. "No," she whispered. "He was just some guy at the party." "Just some guy?" I repeated, my voice rising in disbelief. "You threw away 6 years of marriage for just some guy?" "I didn't throw it away," she cried. I leaned in, my voice ice cold. "You're lying to me even now?" "I know it's Tom, your ex-boyfriend. I know everything." Her face went pale. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Finally, she whispered, "I'm sorry, Dylan. I love you. I messed up, but it doesn't mean I don't love you." I laughed bitterly, a hollow sound that filled the room. "Love? You call this love? And what about the STD test, Miranda? Did you give me something?" She shook her head frantically, trying to reach out to me. "No, I haven't been with you since it happened. I wanted to make sure I was okay before we what?" I shot back, the last shred of patience snapping. "Before we what, Miranda? So you could keep pretending nothing happened? So you could lie to me? To both of us?" Her voice trailed off as she shrunk into herself, her hands twisting together in her lap. I could feel my blood boiling as I processed everything. You've been walking around here acting like everything's fine, while hiding this from me? I could barely contain the bitterness in my voice. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? I swear, Dylan, it was a mistake. It was the biggest mistake of my life, she pleaded, her voice breaking. I shook my head, disgust creeping in. I don't even know who you are anymore. I'm filing for divorce. We're done. Without another word, I grabbed my coat from the hallway and walked out, slamming the door behind me. The finality of it was almost too much to bear, but I knew I couldn't stay. I couldn't pretend anymore. The next morning, I found myself at a lawyer's office. Filling out the paperwork felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life unravel. Divorce wasn't something I ever imagined, but it felt like the only option. The lawyer walked me through protecting my assets, and with every signature, a strange sense of finality settled over me. Weeks passed, and I kept my distance from Miranda, only speaking when absolutely necessary. Her calls and messages became fewer and fewer, eventually stopping altogether. The divorce was finalized, and Miranda walked away with nothing. She had no claim to the house or any of our assets. I had ensured that everything was divided in my favor. Eventually, I sold the house and moved forward, leaving everything behind. In the end, though, I knew one thing for sure. I was better off alone. The man I had been before, full of hope, trust, and love, had been destroyed. But in his place was someone stronger. Someone who had learned the hard way that love was not enough to fix what had been broken. As the months passed, I began to rebuild. Slowly, piece by piece. There were still moments when I thought about Miranda, when the pain of everything we had shared resurfaced. But it wasn't the same. I had moved on. Thank you for watching. I remember the night it all began like it was yesterday. Elena was sitting across from me at the dinner table, her fork pushing around a piece of salmon she barely touched. She had this look on her face, like she was trying to solve a puzzle with no edges. Is everything okay? I asked, finally breaking the silence. She looked up, startled, then set her fork down. Yeah. No, I mean... She sighed. Jake, I want to talk about something. Something important. Her voice had that serious edge to it, the one she used when she was about to suggest something out of the blue, like redecorating the house or adopting a cat, but this time it felt heavier. Okay, I said cautiously. What's on your mind? She hesitated, twisting her wedding band around her finger. I've been thinking about us. About how we've been together for so long, and maybe it's time to try something new. I frowned. Something new? Like what? I think we should consider an open marriage. Her words hit me like a punch in the gut. For a moment, I thought I misheard her. An open marriage? I echoed, my voice a mix of disbelief and anger. Are you serious? She nodded, her gaze steady but nervous. Yes. Look, Jake, I love you. I do. But I think we've been stuck in a rut. This could be a way to explore different sides of ourselves while still being together. I laughed, but it wasn't the funny kind of laugh. It was sharp and bitter. So let me get this straight. You want to sleep with other people but still keep me around as your husband? How generous. It's not just about sleeping with other people, she said defensively. It's about freedom, trust, growth. Don't you want to see what's out there too? I shook my head. No, Elena, I don't. I married you because I wanted you, not some open-ended experiment in freedom. The argument lasted for hours. She had all these rehearsed lines about how this wasn't about me lacking anything, how it was about enriching our lives, how monogamy was just a social construct. I countered with every reason why this was a terrible idea, how it felt like a betrayal, how it would destroy what we had. But Elena didn't relent. She leaned forward, her voice quickening, as if her words were building toward a final attempt to convince me. I've been reading about it, she said, her eyes intense. How couples try it to rekindle things or explore themselves while still staying committed to each other. We've been together for 10 years, Jake. I feel like I need something more. Excitement. New experiences. Excitement? My voice rose. We're married, Elena. I thought that was the point. You know, commitment. Building a life together. She sighed, her tone tinged with frustration. It's not about you, okay? You're great. It's about me. I feel like I'm missing something. I don't want to leave you. I love you, but I think we'd both benefit from exploring this. My stomach churned. The woman I'd vowed to spend my life with was asking for permission to sleep with other people. It wasn't exactly a scenario I'd prepared for. I don't know, Elena, I said, shaking my head. This feels wrong. How would this even work? She reached for my hand, her touch soft, coaxing. We'd set boundaries, clear rules, no emotional attachments. We'd always communicate and be honest about everything. Jake, I need this, and I don't want to do it without you. Eventually, though, I gave in. Not because I agreed with her, but because I wanted to see where this would lead. Call it morbid curiosity, or maybe I wanted to prove her wrong. But even as I nodded and said the word she wanted to hear, I was already thinking about divorce. If Elena wanted to sleep with other men, I wasn't going to stay married to her. The thought burned in my mind, cold and sharp. I didn't say it yet, but I was ready. The following day, I took the first steps to protect myself. While Elena went about her usual routine, I was already looking into ways to shield my assets. I read articles, called a few financial advisors, and even booked an appointment with a lawyer. I laid it all out: the open marriage proposal, my suspicions, my plan to end things without losing everything I'd worked for. My marriage was over, at least for me it was. But until everything was sorted out, until I had the divorce papers signed and my future secured, I decided to play along with her little open marriage game. I wasn't going to show my cards just yet. The next few days passed in a surreal haze. Elena wasted no time diving headfirst into her newfound freedom. She started dressing differently. Tighter dresses, higher heels, a spritz of perfume I hadn't smelled on her before. And then, just like that, she was dating. Then there was my turning point. It came one Saturday when her best friend Amy came over for coffee. Amy had always been around, a bubbly, sarcastic counterpoint to Elena's more serious demeanor. She was the kind of person who could light up a room just by walking in. As the three of us sat in the living room, Elena excused herself to take a phone call. Amy and I were left alone, and I noticed something. The way Amy looked at me, not with pity, like so many others, but with something deeper. Sympathy. Understanding. And if I was honest with myself, there had been something else too. Flirtation. In the past, I'd caught Amy giving me these subtle, playful glances, an extra smile that lingered too long, a teasing joke with just a hint of double meaning. But back then, I brushed it off. She was my wife's best friend, and I was a married man. Nothing good could come from entertaining those looks. But now, things were different. Elena had opened the floodgates with this open marriage thing, and suddenly the boundaries that used to hold me back were gone. For the first time, I didn't have to ignore the flirtation. I could respond. She's really taking advantage of this whole open marriage thing, isn't she? Amy said, her voice low. I raised an eyebrow. What makes you say that? She shrugged. I see how she treats you. Like you're just there. It's not fair. Her words struck a chord. Over the next few days, Amy and I started talking more. Innocent conversations at first, then deeper ones. She became my confidant, the one person who didn't make me feel like I was losing my mind. One evening, Amy and I ended up at a local bar, just the two of us. We found ourselves lingering longer than usual. The conversation was easy, lighthearted, a bit flirtatious, like it always was when we were alone. But tonight felt different. The tension between us, which had always been there but unspoken, had shifted. Amy gave me that playful smile, the one I'd seen countless times before. But this time there was something more to it. Hey, Jake, she said, her voice low. You want to come back to my place? Without thinking, I nodded. Yeah. We drove to her place in silence, both of us acutely aware of the change in the air. I couldn't shake the thought that for the first time, we were not just friends or confidants. We were something else. As soon as we stepped inside, one thing led to another. The chemistry was undeniable. She leaned in, and we kissed. Before things went any further, Amy paused for a moment, her breath shallow. She looked at me with a mixture of longing and vulnerability. I've always liked you, Jake, she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. I wanted you for so long, but you were married to Elena. I never thought it would happen like this, but I'm glad it did. Then there was no turning back after that. We moved to the bedroom, and soon enough we were in bed together. The next few days passed in a blur. Elena had begun fully embracing this open marriage. She was out late more often, dressing differently, even more provocative than before. It was almost as if she was making up for lost time. And I? Well, I was quietly playing along, making sure everything moved at my pace, all while knowing that things had already changed in ways I couldn't undo. One night she came home late, smelling like wine and someone else's cologne. I was sitting on the couch waiting for her. "How was your night?" I asked, my tone icy but calm. She hesitated before answering. "It was good. I met someone." "Met someone," I repeated, eyes narrowing. "And we talked. That's all." She avoided my gaze as she moved toward the kitchen, her voice trailing off. I knew better than that. She wasn't just talking to him. She'd slept with him. But I said nothing, waiting, letting the words hang in the air. I wasn't going to play her game and pretend I didn't know what was happening. She wanted this. She had pushed for it. A few moments later I asked, almost casually, "So how was it? Did you enjoy it?" She paused, a slight flush creeping up her neck. "It was good." I took a slow breath, then casually dropped the bomb. "I did the same thing, you know. Last night." Her eyes snapped to mine, wide with surprise. "What?" she asked, almost defensively. "Yeah," I said, letting the words sink in. "I spent the night with someone. She was amazing. One of the best nights I've had in a long time. You were right, Elena. This is exactly what we both needed." I kept my face neutral, watching her carefully. The jealousy began creeping into her eyes, but she didn't say anything at first. Instead, she turned away, pretending to busy herself with something in the kitchen, but I could tell she was rattled. "You're not upset?" she finally asked, her voice tight. "No," I answered, keeping my cool. "Why would I be? You said we both need to explore and be free. I'm just playing by the same rules, right?" The silence between us grew thick as she processed my words, her mind racing. I'd flipped her own logic back at her, and it was making her uncomfortable. "So, who is she?" Elena asked, a hint of something darker in her voice. "I'm not sure you'd know her," I replied nonchalantly, suppressing the urge to smile. "But she's someone who understands me, someone who makes me feel good." Elena stood still, her fingers gripping the counter. I could see the jealousy clouding her eyes, but she tried to hide it. "You're not the only one, Jake. I don't care who you sleep with." But I could tell that she did. She cared more than she wanted to admit. The thing with Amy started out slow, casual even, but it quickly grew into something more serious. Every time I saw her, it felt like something deeper was forming, like we were building something together that I hadn't even realized I needed. We talked more, laughed more, and I found myself looking forward to our time together, each moment feeling more genuine than anything I'd felt in a long time. And all the while I continued to carefully set the wheels in motion for the inevitable. My lawyer had been on the case, and everything was shaping up exactly how I'd planned. I had a clear picture now. Divorce, yes, but with the added bonus of protecting my assets. I wasn't going to let Elena take me for everything I had just because she wanted to sleep with other men. The financials were in place. The paperwork was ready. I had made sure that any property, savings, or assets were secured, ensuring that when the time came, Elena would be left with nothing. She had no idea what was coming. I had played the game long enough. It was all about timing now. One afternoon after Elena had left to meet yet another friend, I called Amy. I told her I needed her, that tonight was the night. I wanted her to come over, and I wanted it to be just us. I needed to show Elena exactly what she had lost, and what she could never take back. I could feel the excitement building as I prepared. I made sure everything was in place, setting the scene just the way I wanted it. Amy arrived not long after, her smile easy and knowing, as though she could sense what was coming. We didn't waste time with small talk. We went to the bedroom. Things between us were no longer casual. As I held her, I felt the weight of everything that had led up to this moment. My pain, my betrayal, the frustration of watching Elena twist our lives for her own selfish needs. And I felt satisfaction. I didn't need Elena anymore. I was free, and with Amy, I was choosing to build something real. And then, just as I had expected, the door opened. I heard Elena's voice before I saw her. "Jake?" I froze for a second, the sound of her voice sending a chill through me. I looked at Amy, who was already standing and moving toward the door. It was happening. Elena stepped inside, her eyes going wide as she took in the sight of us in bed together. "What the hell is going on here?" Elena's voice cracked as her eyes filled with shock and rage. I stood up, calm but steady. "What's wrong, honey?" Elena's hands shook as she stepped back, her breath coming in shallow gasps. You're sleeping with her? She is the one you are sleeping with?" "Yes, why? Is anything wrong with that? We agreed to sleep with whoever we want. No emotional attachments, remember?" Then Amy jumped in, her voice light but biting. "Thank you for giving Jake to me. He's the best I've ever had." Elena's face twisted with disbelief, and then the hurt flooded her eyes. "How could you?" She took a step back. "You were my best friend. How could you sleep with my husband, you little whore? How could you do this to me?" Amy met her gaze without hesitation. "You did this to yourself. You wanted the open marriage, right? And what we have with Jake, it's not casual. We're together now. For real." I could see the tears welling up in her eyes. She looked at Amy, then at me, her face a mixture of disbelief and hurt. "So you're really with her now?" I took a deep breath and walked over to where she stood. There was no turning back now, no more pretending. I looked her square in the eyes. "Yes, Elena, I'm with her now. And we're not just sleeping together." She kept crying, her sobs rising in intensity. Then I continued, "I've filed for divorce. I'm done with you. You've made your choices, and now I'm making mine." Her expression shifted from anger to complete devastation. She looked as though she couldn't breathe, the reality of it hitting her harder than I had anticipated. You filed for divorce?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Jake, no. Please, we can fix this, we can—" I shook my head. "No, Elena. There's nothing to fix. You've already ruined it. I've given you the freedom you wanted. But I'm done with this. I'm done with you." She collapsed, her knees buckling as she sank to the floor, her face in her hands as the sobs started. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought we could try. I thought we could be happy. I just wanted to feel alive again." I watched her, emotionless. "You wanted to feel alive? You didn't care what it did to me, Elena. You didn't care what it did to us. Now I'm doing what's best for me." The silence that followed was deafening. Elena was crying and Amy stood behind me, quiet but present. There was no comfort for Elena here. Not from me, not from anyone. In the end, Elena didn't get anything from me. When the divorce was final, she walked away with nothing. No money, no property, nothing. She left the house and I never saw her again. Soon after, I sold the house, making sure to sever all ties to the past. It wasn't just about the property. It was about leaving everything behind. Every memory, every lie, every mistake. I moved with Amy to a new city, eager for a fresh start, away from the years of pain and betrayal. There, I could finally build something new, something real. The past was behind me, and with Amy by my side, I was ready to move forward. Thank you for watching. I guess every man has a moment when he knows something is broken. Mine came on a Saturday night at a party I didn't even want to go to. Cindy, my wife, insisted we show up. It was Megan's birthday, one of her friends from the office. Cindy spent an hour getting ready, arguing with me over which shirt looked less boring. That should have been a clue. The party was loud, packed with people I barely knew. Everyone had a drink in their hand, laughing too hard at bad jokes. Megan decided we needed to spice things up with a game. Truth or dare. Childish stuff. But we played anyway. It was supposed to be funny. Until Megan, drunk and grinning, pointed at Cindy and said, "All right, your turn. Truth, if you could swap Gordon for someone else, who would it be?" Everyone laughed, waiting for the punchline. I waited too. Cindy, smiling too wide, tossed her hair over her shoulder and said, "Swap? Easy. Ethan from my spin class. He actually listens." The table erupted. Someone spilled a drink. Megan cackled like a hyena. I forced a laugh. That's what you do when your wife humbles you in front of 20 people. You pretend it's funny. Cindy winked at me like it was all just harmless. I swallowed what I really wanted to say and lifted my glass. Cheers to humiliation. The rest of the night blurred into noise. Cindy kept drinking, kept laughing with Ethan, who happened to show up halfway through the night. She looked happier standing next to him than she had in months standing next to me. I stood there, glass in hand, wondering when exactly I'd become a punchline in my own life. Later, as we drove home, the silence in the car felt heavier than any shouting match could have been. I clutched the steering wheel so hard my fingers started to ache. She was scrolling through her phone, humming under her breath like nothing had happened. And right then, I knew. Something had shifted between us. Something we wouldn't be able to walk back. The garage door rattled shut behind us. Cindy hopped out of the car first, kicking off her heels before she even reached the porch. I followed slower. Inside, she dropped her purse on the counter and went straight for the fridge, grabbing a bottle of water like she hadn't just embarrassed me in front of a room full of strangers. "You're mad," she said, not even turning around. I leaned against the doorway. Not mad, just wondering when I became a joke. She laughed under her breath. "Oh, come on, Gordon. It was a game. Grow up." I watched her unscrew the bottle cap, casual, dismissive, like none of it mattered. "You picked Ethan," I said. She shrugged. "It's not like I meant it." "You sure about that?" I asked. Cindy turned then, finally looking at me. "Seriously? You're going to make a thing out of this? Jesus, Gordon, you've been sleepwalking through our marriage for months. Maybe if you actually paid attention to me once in a while, I wouldn't have to joke about someone else." There it was, the first real blow. I crossed my arms, keeping my voice calm. "You've been texting him?" Her face twitched, just a little, but enough. "What if I have?" she shot back. "It's not like you care. You hardly notice when I'm in the room." I pushed off the doorframe, stepping closer. "You're right. I didn't notice. Not until tonight." Cindy set the bottle down a little too hard. "You're being ridiculous. Ethan's a friend, that's all." I didn't respond. I just watched her, and in the silence she flinched like I'd shouted. "We're just bored, Gordon," she said, softer now. "Every couple hits a rough patch." "This isn't a rough patch," I said. "This is you looking for the exit." She opened her mouth to argue, but no words came out. Instead, she turned away, busying herself with nothing, straightening a pile of mail, adjusting a vase. I went upstairs without another word. When I woke up the next morning, her side of the bed was cold, and I knew. We weren't bored. We were broken. 3 days passed. Cindy and I barely spoke. We moved around the house like strangers, exchanging clipped sentences about groceries or bills, pretending everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. On Thursday, I came home from work earlier than usual. Cindy was upstairs, probably getting ready to go out again. I tossed my keys on the counter and spotted her phone sitting next to her purse. She must have just come back and dropped everything like she always did. Curiosity isn't something I'm proud of. But that night, with her upstairs and the house quiet, I picked it up. One message preview lit up the screen. It was from Ethan. "I had a great time today. Miss you already." I didn't unlock it. Didn't need to. That one line told me everything I wasn't brave enough to say out loud. A few minutes later, Cindy came downstairs, adjusting her earrings. She froze when she saw me sitting at the table, her phone in my hand. Her smile faded. "What are you doing?" "Waiting," I said. "For what?" I slid her phone across the table toward her. "For the truth." She stared at it, at me, then slowly crossed her arms like she was shielding herself. "You're being paranoid." I raised an eyebrow. "Am I?" Cindy shifted her weight, defensive. "I'm allowed to have friends." "Friends who miss you already?" I asked. She hesitated, then said, "Fine. We had lunch." I didn't blink. "With Ethan." "Yes, Gordon. With Ethan. Because he listens. Because he actually sees me." I leaned back, heart pounding but face calm. "So go be seen." "What's that supposed to mean?" she snapped. "It means you've made your choice. I'm just making it official." She stared at me like I'd slapped her. "You'd throw away our marriage over a few texts?" she asked, voice rising. "No," I said. "You did." For a second, I thought she might cry. But Cindy's too proud for that. She straightened her shoulders and said, "Fine. Maybe I should leave." I nodded once. "Maybe you should." She grabbed her phone, her bag, her keys. No pleading, No apologies. Just anger. Pure and sharp. The door slammed so hard the wall shook. I sat there staring at the empty doorway, listening to the silence settle back over the house. For the first time in a long time, I realized something terrifying. I didn't miss her. Cindy didn't come home that night. I wish I could say I sat up worrying, second-guessing myself. But the truth is, I slept better than I had in months. The next morning, the world outside looked the same. Cloudy, cold, but inside, something had shifted. Something heavy had finally lifted off my chest. I made coffee, toasted a bagel, sat at the kitchen table, phone in hand, staring at her contact. I didn't call her. Instead, I got up, grabbed some boxes from the garage and started packing her things. Clothes, shoes, bathroom junk she hadn't touched in months. I filled each box and stacked them by the door, one after the other, not rushing, not hesitating. I was halfway through when Cindy's car pulled into the driveway. She stormed in like she still owned the place. "What the hell is this?" I stood up, wiping my hands on my jeans. "It's what you wanted." "You can't just pack my stuff," she snapped. "You left," I said, voice calm. "I'm just finishing the job." Her eyes darted around the room, landing on the half-packed boxes. "This is insane, Gordon. You're being petty." "No," I said. "I'm being clear." She opened her mouth to argue, but stopped herself. She looked at me for a long second, and for the first time her face crumbled just a little. "Gordon, we can fix this." I shook my head. "You don't fix something by treating it like it's disposable." For the first time I saw fear flicker across her face. She backed up a step, then another. Without another word, she spun on her heel, slammed the door, and drove off. I stood there in the quiet, surrounded by the boxes, feeling lighter than I had in years. I knew that every time I responded, I gave her power back, and I was done giving. One night I got home late from work and found her sitting on the porch steps. Her mascara was smudged, hair pulled back like she hadn't even looked in a mirror. She stood up when she saw me. "Gordon, please," she said. "Don't do this." I walked past her, unlocked the door. "You need to leave." She followed me inside. "We're not done. You're just hurt. I get it, but we can fix it." I dropped my keys on the counter. "You're right, I was hurt. Now I'm just tired." "You're being stubborn," she snapped. "One mistake and you're ready to erase everything?" I turned around, really looking at her. "It wasn't one mistake, Cindy. It was all the choices you made after. The way you laughed at me behind my back. The messages you sent to someone else. The way you made me feel small without even thinking twice." She opened her mouth to argue, but the words died on her lips. I grabbed the folder off the counter and held it out to her. "What's this?" she asked, voice thin. "Divorce papers," I said. Her hands shook as she took it. "This isn't you," she whispered. I shook my head. "No, this isn't you either. Not anymore." For a second she just stood there holding the papers, staring at the ground. Then, slowly, she set them down on the table. When she looked up at me, her face was cold. "You're making a mistake," she said. "Maybe," I replied, "but it's mine to make." She picked up her bag, shouldered it without another word, and walked out. This time I didn't watch her leave. I closed the door behind her and locked it. Not to keep her out, to keep myself in. The house was different after she left. Quieter, sure, but not empty. It was lighter, like I could finally breathe. Days passed. I got used to the silence faster than I thought I would. Later one evening I sat on the back porch with a beer in hand, watching the sunset bleed across the sky. My phone buzzed on the table. Cindy again. "I miss you. Please, Gordon." I stared at the screen for a long minute. Then I powered the phone off and set it aside. It wasn't anger anymore, or sadness, or regret. It was just done. A week turned into a month. The lawyer finalized the divorce papers. I signed without hesitation. Megan texted once too, some half apology on Cindy's behalf. I didn't answer her either. The real shock wasn't how much I'd lost. It was how little I missed it. I started running again, signed up for a woodworking class, took a weekend trip to the mountains alone, something Cindy would have mocked as sad and weird. It wasn't sad. It was the first time in years I breathed easy. Every now and then I'd think about Cindy, about the way she used to laugh when she wasn't trying to impress anyone, the way she used to curl up next to me without saying a word. But then I'd remember the cold look in her eyes that night on the porch, the way she chose someone else, even if she tried to pretend it was harmless. Some things you don't come back from. Some things you shouldn't. 6 months later, I was sitting at a new coffee shop downtown when I saw her. Cindy. She looked thinner, tired, like life had taken a few cheap shots at her. She didn't see me. She was too busy arguing with someone over the phone, pacing outside, arms flailing in frustration. I sipped my coffee and watched through the window, feeling nothing. No anger, no sadness, no regret, just distance. I paid my bill and headed out the side door so she wouldn't spot me. Later that night, Megan texted me again, like she still felt guilty about picking sides. She said Cindy was with Ethan now, that it was a mess, and she looked miserable. I stared at the message for a moment, then deleted it without replying. I didn't need updates. I wasn't rooting for her to fail. I wasn't rooting for her at all. I'd stopped playing that game. That night back at my house, a place that was finally mine, filled with things I actually wanted, and silence I welcomed, I thought about that night at Megan's party. About the joke. About how fast you can lose everything you thought was solid, and how sometimes losing it is the best thing that can happen to you. Because the truth was simple. Cindy didn't break me. She showed me what I was too stubborn to see for myself. I used to think love meant endurance, staying no matter what, suffering in silence, forgiving every cut, laughing off every wound. Now I know better. Love's supposed to be a place you run toward, not something you survive. I checked my phone once before heading to bed. No new messages. No missed calls. Good. I turned off the light, lay back, and smiled to myself. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting for anyone. I already had everything I needed. And if Cindy ever wondered what finally broke me, what finally made me walk away, she'd never understand. It wasn't one big betrayal. It was death by 1,000 tiny cuts she never thought I'd feel. Until I did. And by then I wasn't hers to hurt anymore. Thank you for watching. I never thought my marriage would end like this, but it did. Miranda was the woman I once believed was my perfect match. We had been together for nearly 5 years, married for 2. In the beginning, everything was great. She was charming, beautiful, and incredibly smart. We met at a friend's wedding, and I was instantly drawn to her energy. She had that way of making everyone in the room feel special, like you were the only one who mattered when she talked to you. We hit it off, started dating, and after 3 years, I proposed. Looking back now, I realized that there were small signs that she wasn't the person I thought she was. But at the time, I ignored them. One memory sticks out now. We were at dinner one night and she suddenly asked, "If you could sleep with any celebrity, who would it be?" I laughed. "I don't know, maybe Jennifer Aniston?" Then I asked her the same question. She smirked. "Honestly, I don't think I need a celebrity hall pass. If I wanted someone bad enough, I could probably get them." I chuckled, thinking she was joking. But she wasn't. She said it so matter-of-factly that it made my stomach twist. I should have paid attention to that moment, but I didn't. A year into our marriage, Miranda changed. At first, it was subtle, so subtle that I ignored it. She started working late more often, texting at odd hours, and becoming more distant. I figured it was just stress from work. Miranda was in marketing and her company had been landing big clients, so it made sense that she was busy. But then, her usual long, detailed stories about her day became short, vague answers. I remember one night when she came home later than usual. "Hey, how was work?" I asked, setting her plate on the table. She barely looked up from her phone. "Busy, same stuff." That was it. This was the same woman who used to spill every detail about her day, the office drama, her projects, even what she ate for lunch. But now, nothing. And the worst part? She stopped being affectionate. No more random kisses on the cheek. No more saying "I love you" before bed. It was like she was physically there but emotionally somewhere else. One night I reached out to hold her hand while we were watching TV. She pulled away. "Sorry," she mumbled, shifting on the couch like even that small touch made her uncomfortable. I tried to tell myself it was just a phase, that it would pass. But deep down, a small voice inside me was already whispering, "Something is wrong." Then came the night that confirmed everything. It was a normal evening. Miranda had just come home from work, exhausted as usual. She kicked off her heels, muttered something about a long day, and headed to the shower. Her phone was on the couch, and then it buzzed. I wouldn't have thought twice about it, except the name on the screen wasn't one I recognized. Nathan. A second buzz. Curiosity got the best of me. I reached for the phone. Miranda usually never left her phone unattended, which was weird in itself. I wasn't the kind of guy to snoop. But something felt off. I swiped to read the message. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Last night was amazing." I felt my stomach drop. I blinked, reading it again, hoping I had misunderstood. Maybe this was a work text? Maybe Nathan was a co-worker? Had I just imagined it? Had I really just read that? I sat there staring at the phone, my heartbeat pounding in my ears, waiting for Miranda to come out of the shower. A few minutes later, the bathroom door creaked open. She stepped out, towel wrapped around her, hair damp, rubbing her neck. She saw me sitting there. She saw her phone in my hand. And she froze. Her whole expression shifted in an instant, like a deer caught in headlights. Her eyes darted from me to her phone, her brain trying to calculate a way out of this. "Tom, what are you doing?" I lifted my eyes to meet hers. My voice came out quieter than I expected. "Who's Nathan?" She went completely pale. She didn't answer me right away. Instead, she sighed, ran a hand through her damp hair, and forced a small, casual smile, like she was amused by the whole thing. "Tom, come on. Nathan is just a friend from work." I lifted the phone and turned the screen toward her. "Really? Work friends send messages like this?" Her smile twitched, her eyes flicking over the words on the screen. She was caught. For a split second I saw panic in her eyes. But instead of admitting anything, she did what she always did best. She went on the offensive. With a sharp inhale, she snatched the phone out of my hand and locked it. "You went through my phone?" she snapped. "That's a huge violation of trust." I almost laughed. "Are you serious right now? You are the one cheating." She rolled her eyes and folded her arms, her posture shifting from guilt to annoyance in an instant. "It's not like that, Tom. You're overreacting." I stood up, pacing the living room, feeling my blood boil. "Overreacting? Miranda, you've been sneaking around with some guy behind my back." She exhaled sharply, as if I was exhausting her, then flopped down onto the couch like this was some petty argument about forgetting to take out the trash. "God, you are so dramatic," she muttered, rubbing her temples. "It's just harmless fun, Tom. It doesn't mean anything." I stopped pacing. I turned to her, trying to process what I had just heard. Fun? I had built a life with this woman. I had given her my trust, my loyalty. I had imagined a future with her, kids, a home, growing old together. And she called it fun? Something inside me snapped. "So that's it? That's all you have to say?" I asked, my voice steady, but sharp. She shrugged as if this was just some minor inconvenience in her night. "Look, it's not like I don't love you, but sometimes a woman just needs a little excitement." I clenched my fists, trying to hold back the wave of rage building inside me. "Excitement?" I repeated, my voice shaking. "So what am I? Just the stable, boring guy you keep around for security while you run off for fun with other men?" She didn't answer. She just looked at me with mild irritation, like I was a child throwing a tantrum. That was the moment I knew. She wasn't sorry. She didn't regret it. She had never planned to stop. She thought she could get away with it. And worse, she thought I would just accept it. I took a deep breath, staring at the woman I had once thought I would spend my life with. I needed proof, real proof. Because if Miranda wasn't going to admit the truth, I was going to find it myself. I didn't want to argue anymore. I needed to be smart. I knew confronting her wouldn't get me anywhere. She'd keep lying. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a private investigator. His name was Jack, an ex-cop who now ran a small firm. When I met him, I told him everything. He listened, nodding like he'd heard it all before. "She's sloppy," he said after I finished talking. "If she's cheating, we'll find out quickly." There was no sympathy in his voice, just professional certainty. All I could do now was wait and let him do his job. Waiting was agony. Every evening Miranda came home later than usual, tossing out the same tired excuses as if she were reading off a script. Had to stay longer at the office. Went out for drinks with co-workers. Traffic was terrible. At first I responded with a nod and a forced smile, pretending like I believed her. But inside, every muscle in my body was tense, every instinct screaming that she was lying to my face. The worst part? I had to act like nothing was wrong. I still made small talk over dinner, still kissed her cheek before bed, still watched TV with her as if everything was normal. But my mind was somewhere else entirely, running through the worst possible scenarios. At night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, obsessing over where she really was. Was she with him right now? Was she sitting across from Nathan in some dimly lit restaurant, leaning in close, whispering to him the way she used to whisper to me? Was she laughing at my expense, telling him stories about how clueless I was? The thought made my stomach turn. I hated how powerless I felt, how I had to sit there and wait, knowing that Miranda was out there doing God knows what while I lay in bed beside an empty space. But I reminded myself, this was temporary. Jack was out there watching, gathering proof. I just had to hold on. 4 days in, my phone rang. Jack's voice was calm, too calm. "We got something. Can you meet at my office?" A chill ran through me. My fingers tightened around the phone. My mouth was dry when I answered. "Yeah, I'll be there in 30 minutes. When I walked into Jack's office, he was already seated behind his desk. In front of him sat a manila folder, thick and slightly worn from handling. It looked innocent, just a collection of papers and photographs, but I knew it contained something that would change everything. Jack motioned for me to sit down. His expression was unreadable, his voice even. "Do you want me to just tell you, or do you want to see it for yourself?" My throat tightened. I swallowed hard, knowing there was no good way to hear it. "Tell me," I managed. Jack exhaled, slow and measured. "She's cheating, no doubt about it." I felt my entire body go numb. Even though I had suspected it all along, hearing it confirmed out loud was something else entirely. The last shred of hope I had, the tiny part of me that had clung to the idea that maybe, just maybe, I was wrong, was gone. Jack leaned forward and flipped open the folder. I could see photographs neatly stacked inside, and as he pulled a few out, I braced myself. And there she was, Miranda, walking into a hotel with him, holding his hand outside a restaurant, fingers intertwined like it was the most natural thing in the world, kissing him. The man? Nathan. I clenched my jaw as I stared at the photos. This wasn't just a one-time mistake. It wasn't some drunken lapse in judgment. This was something more. She had been lying to my face for months, coming home to me, acting like nothing was wrong, while she was out building a new life with someone else. Jack leaned back in his chair, letting me take it in. I kept looking at the pictures, feeling my pulse hammering in my ears. There it was. Proof. No more doubts. No more excuses. Miranda had been betraying me all along, and now there was no avoiding it. I had to confront her. That night Miranda came home late again. Same routine. She tossed her keys on the counter, kicked off her heels, and barely spared me a glance. "You're up late," she muttered, heading toward the kitchen. I didn't say anything. I just pulled out the folder and placed it on the dining table. She stopped mid-step. I flipped it open, spreading the photos out in front of me, making sure she could see every single one. For a few seconds she just stared. No shock, no panic, just stillness. Then she sighed. Not a guilty sigh, not a remorseful sigh, just annoyance, like I had caught her doing something mildly inconvenient. She crossed her arms and looked at me. "Okay, fine. Yes, I cheated. So what?" I blinked. For a moment I thought I had misheard her. So what? That was it? No apology, no attempt to explain, just a casual confession, like she had forgotten to pick up groceries instead of shattering our marriage. I kept staring at her, waiting for her to say something, anything, that would make me believe she felt even a shred of regret. But instead she smirked, a slow, deliberate, arrogant smirk. "You'll never find someone like me again, Tom," she said, her voice dripping with mockery. "Let's be real. I was out of your league from the start." Something inside me snapped. Not in an angry, explosive way. Not in a rage-filled outburst. No, this was different. It was like a switch had been flipped. Like I was suddenly seeing her for the first time, really seeing her, without the blinders of love, without the weight of history, without the illusion that this woman was someone worth fighting for. And in that moment, I felt nothing for her. No love, no pain, just indifference. I stood up, walked to the bedroom, and grabbed a few essentials from the closet. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I just took what I needed and walked out. Miranda didn't move. She didn't try to stop me. She just watched with mild curiosity, like she was observing some random stranger going about their day. By the time I reached the door, she finally spoke. "You're really leaving over this?" she scoffed. "God, Tom, don't be such a child." I didn't respond. Didn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me break. I grabbed my bag, and without a second glance I left. No goodbyes, no last words. Just done. The next morning I filed for divorce. No hesitation, no second guessing. That same day I went back to the house, packed the rest of my things, and moved into a small apartment across town. It wasn't much, but it was mine. For the first time in months, I felt free. When Miranda got the papers, she barely reacted, just signed them like our marriage meant nothing. Weeks passed. Then, out of nowhere, I got an invitation to my college reunion. I almost didn't go, but something in me said, why not? That's where I ran into Emma. She was the same, funny, kind, effortlessly easy to talk to. We hadn't spoken in years, but that night we talked for hours. At the end of the night, her friend pulled me aside. "You know Emma had a crush on you in college, right?" I laughed. "No way." "Yeah." After everything with Miranda, hearing that felt like a sign. The next day I messaged Emma. She replied immediately. Fast forward a year, we're together, and she treats me like I'm the only guy in the world. As for Miranda, she texted me once. "I hope you know you'll never find someone like me again." I blocked her, because she was right. I found someone better. Thank you for watching. Make sure to hit the like button if you enjoy this content, leave a comment below with your thoughts on the story, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss a new confession. Let's get started. Sophia and Michael had been married for 10 years. They were the picture of a loving couple. From the outside, their life seemed perfect. Sophia was a successful event planner, known for her keen eye for detail and her ability to create memorable experiences for her clients. Michael, on the other hand, was a dedicated software engineer who had just been promoted to a leadership role in his firm. Together, they had built a comfortable life, complete with a beautiful house in the suburbs and 2 golden retrievers, Rusty and Bella. But beneath the surface of their well-crafted life, cracks had begun to form, unnoticed by anyone but Sophia herself. It started, innocently enough, with distance. Michael's new position demanded long hours, late nights, and frequent travel. He was thrilled about the promotion, and Sophia was happy for him at first. But as the weeks turned into months, Michael seemed to become more of a shadow than a partner. He'd come home exhausted, barely able to keep his eyes open long enough to hear about her day. Dinners turned into quiet affairs, punctuated by the soft sounds of silverware scraping plates. And on most nights he'd be asleep before she could even join him in bed. Loneliness seeped into Sophia's life like water through a crack in a dam. She tried to fill the void with her work, diving into projects and planning elaborate events. She joined a yoga class, rekindled her love for painting, and spent more time with her friends who sympathized with her about Michael's absence. But none of it filled the emptiness she felt growing in her heart. She missed the man she'd fallen in love with, the man who used to surprise her with impromptu weekend getaways, who would make her laugh until her sides hurt, and who could never go a day without telling her how much he loved her. One evening, Sophia was at an event she had organized for a high-profile client, a charity gala for the city's elite. She was managing the crowd, ensuring every detail was flawless, when she met Julian. He was a guest at the event, a successful architect with an easy smile and a charisma that seemed to draw people in effortlessly. He complimented her on the event, and they struck up a conversation. Julian was attentive and charming, and Sophia found herself drawn to him in a way she hadn't felt in years. He was genuinely interested in her, asking about her work, her hobbies, and her life. For the first time in a long time, she felt seen. As the night wore on, they continued to talk. Sophia felt herself opening up, sharing stories and dreams she hadn't thought about in years. She realized with a pang that she hadn't spoken to anyone like this since Michael had started his new job. When the event was over, Julian asked for her number. Hesitating only a moment, Sophia gave it to him. She told herself it was harmless, just a friendly connection. They exchanged a few texts in the following days, light-hearted and innocent, discussing books and movies, sharing stories of their lives. But with every message, Sophia felt a spark reigniting inside her, a spark she had thought long extinguished. The turning point came a few weeks later when Julian invited her for coffee. It was a chilly Saturday morning, and Michael was away on a business trip. Sophia accepted the invitation, convincing herself it was just coffee between friends. But when she saw Julian waiting for her at a cozy cafe, his eyes lighting up when he spotted her, she felt a thrill she couldn't deny. They talked for hours, losing track of time as they shared their thoughts, their pasts, and their hopes for the future. Sophia was captivated by his warmth, his humor, and the way he made her feel like the only person in the world. After that coffee date, their meetings became more frequent. Lunches turned into dinners, and dinners turned into long, lingering walks through the city, where Julian would brush his hand against hers, sending a jolt of electricity up her spine. Sophia knew she was playing with fire, but she couldn't bring herself to stop. She had spent so long feeling invisible, starved for affection, that Julian's attention felt like a lifeline. One evening, after an especially intimate dinner, Julian invited her back to his apartment. Sophia hesitated, torn between guilt and longing. She thought of Michael, the man she had promised to love and cherish. But then she thought of all the nights she had spent alone, all the times she had waited for a text or a call that never came. She followed Julian to his apartment, and that night she crossed a line she could never uncross. Julian unlocked the door, and as it swung open, the warm, inviting space inside seemed like a different world, separate from the life she'd been leading, untouched by her obligations, her regrets, or her routine. Inside, Julian turned to her, his eyes soft yet intense, as though asking for her final consent. She felt his hand on her cheek, his thumb brushing lightly against her skin, sending a shiver down her spine. All of the loneliness she'd harbored, the yearning for connection, seemed to come to a head in that moment. As they moved closer, Sophia felt a release, a moment of surrender that was both terrifying and freeing. Julian's touch was gentle but sure, his attentiveness something she hadn't felt in so long. They took their time, each movement deliberate, allowing Sophia to feel seen, desired, and connected in a way that felt achingly foreign. She was captivated by the warmth of his embrace, the way he seemed to be present with her in a way that she had been missing at home. The intensity of the night filled her with a rush of sensations she hadn't felt in years. In Julian's arms, she felt the excitement of rediscovery and the bittersweet realization of what she'd been seeking all along, to feel alive, cherished, and understood. As dawn approached, Sophia lay awake beside Julian, staring into the quiet darkness, the weight of what had happened settling into her. She felt simultaneously fulfilled and hollow, knowing she had experienced something beautiful yet irrevocable, something she would carry with her from that day forward, a choice that would reshape everything. Their affair continued in secret for months. Each time they were together, Sophia felt both exhilarated and guilty, caught between the thrill of rediscovering herself and the shame of betraying her husband. She knew it was wrong, but part of her couldn't help but feel that Michael had already left her in every way that mattered. In Julian's arms, she found the passion and connection she had been missing. He made her feel alive, vibrant, and cherished. But secrets have a way of surfacing, and Sophia's affair was no exception. One evening, Michael returned from a business trip earlier than expected. Sophia hadn't been answering his calls, and he was worried. When he walked through the door, he found her sitting on the couch, lost in thought. There was an unfamiliar look in her eyes, a mix of sadness and regret. He tried to ignore it, chalking it up to exhaustion, but as the days passed, he began to notice small changes. She was distant, distracted, and her phone seemed to be glued to her hand, with messages she would quickly hide whenever he came near. Michael's suspicions grew, and he began piecing together the signs he had ignored. One evening he decided to confront her, hoping to dispel his fears. But when he looked into her eyes and asked if there was someone else, Sophia couldn't bring herself to lie. She confessed, tears streaming down her face, telling him about Julian and the loneliness she had felt in their marriage. Michael was devastated. The woman he had loved, the life they had built together, all felt like a lie. He couldn't understand how Sophia could betray him, and in that moment, his pain turned into anger. He demanded to know everything, every detail of the affair. She told him, desperate to explain, to make him see that it hadn't been a simple betrayal, but a consequence of a marriage that had slowly unraveled. But Michael couldn't forgive her. The trust they had built, the bond they had shared, felt irreparably shattered. In the weeks that followed, their home became a silent battleground. They barely spoke, and when they did, it was with resentment and blame. Michael tried to understand, to see if there was a way to salvage what was left of their marriage. But every time he looked at her, he saw the betrayal, the nights she had spent with someone else. He began staying at work later, avoiding her, just as she had once felt avoided by him. Eventually, they decided to go to counseling, hoping a neutral party could help them navigate the pain. But even with a therapist's guidance, their sessions were filled with bitterness and hurt. Michael couldn't let go of the betrayal, and Sophia couldn't undo the choices she had made. She apologized repeatedly, told him she regretted it, but deep down, she knew that a part of her didn't. Julian had reminded her of who she was, had helped her see that she was more than just a wife waiting for her husband to come home. Months passed, and despite their efforts, the trust that had once bound them together was gone. Michael filed for divorce, and Sophia moved out of their home. It was a painful end to a marriage that had once been full of love and promise. In the aftermath, Sophia and Julian drifted apart as well. Their affair had been built on loneliness and escape, not the foundation needed for a lasting relationship. When the dust settled, Sophia was left alone, forced to confront the choices she had made and the consequences they carried. Looking back, she realized that her affair had been a symptom of a larger problem, a marriage that had slowly withered under the weight of neglect and unspoken needs. She had looked outside her marriage for something she should have fought to rebuild with her husband. And while she had found moments of happiness with Julian, they came at the cost of a love that could never be mended. In the end, Sophia learned a hard lesson about love, loyalty, and the choices we make when we feel unseen. Her marriage was a casualty of her own actions, and as she looked out at the world as a single woman once again, she vowed to never lose herself in the quiet spaces between her heart and the one she chose to love. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, leave it a thumbs up, share your thoughts in the comments, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to not miss our next shocking tales. Until next time, take care. Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. It all started a few days before New Year's Eve. Olivia, my wife of 7 years, sat across from me at the breakfast table, scrolling through her phone. She had that excited look in her eyes, the one she got when she had big plans. "Michael, did I tell you about the company's New Year's Eve party?" she asked, barely glancing up. "You mentioned it," I replied, sipping my coffee. "I thought we agreed to skip it. I mean, we had our own plans. A quiet evening together, remember?" She sighed and put down her phone. "I know, but it's not just a party. It's a chance for networking, and everyone's going to be there. I can't skip it without looking bad in front of my boss." I raised an eyebrow. "You don't even like these things, and we've been looking forward to our night. Why is this party so important all of a sudden?" She hesitated, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug. "I just think it's good for my career, Michael. And honestly, you can come too. It'll be fun." "I don't know, Olivia. Crowded rooms and schmoozing aren't exactly my idea of fun," I said. "Besides, it's New Year's. Let's just be together. Isn't that what matters?" The conversation spiraled from there, as these things often do. She insisted. I objected. Voices rose. Finally, she threw her hands up. "Fine. If you don't want to come, then don't. But I'm going. You can't make me feel guilty for trying to do something for my career." I stared at her for a long moment, anger simmering beneath my skin. "Oh, all right, whatever. If it's that important to you, you can go," I muttered. "Thanks for understanding, Michael," she said, her voice sharp. But I didn't understand. Not at all. On New Year's Eve evening, Olivia and I sat together at our carefully prepared table. Her company's party wasn't scheduled until 2 a.m., a deliberate choice so employees could spend the turn of the year with their families before heading out to celebrate. The dining room was lit by the soft glow of candles, their flickering light reflecting off the champagne glasses. I had made her favorite dinner, seared salmon with a citrus glaze, and we shared stories and laughs as we always did. For a moment, it felt like everything was as it should be. As the clock ticked closer to midnight, Olivia reached for my hand across the table. "Here's to another year together," she said softly, her eyes shimmering with a mixture of love and something I couldn't quite place. "To another year," I replied, clinking my glass with hers. For a while, We just sat there, enjoying the quiet magic of the moment. But the spell broke when she glanced at the clock. "I should start getting ready," she said, standing and gathering the plates. As she got dressed, I stayed in the living room, flipping through channels on the TV. When she finally came down, she was stunning. Olivia wore a sparkling navy blue dress that hugged her curves in a way that made me feel both proud and uneasy. I swallowed back the strange knot in my stomach. It was just a party, I told myself. She leaned down and kissed my cheek, her perfume lingering in the air. "Don't wait up," she said with a smile. "Happy New Year, honey." "Happy New Year," I replied, forcing a smile as she walked out the door. The house felt eerily quiet after she left, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I told myself I was being ridiculous, that I had no reason to worry. She'd be home soon. It was just a work party. After all, we had just welcomed the new year together. What could possibly go wrong? But deep down, I had no idea how much that night would change everything. The hours ticked by as I sat in the dimly lit living room, mindlessly flipping through channels. The muffled laughter of partygoers on TV felt like mockery, a sharp contrast to the emptiness of the house. By 1:30 a.m., my eyelids grew heavy. I turned off the TV and climbed into bed, the house unnervingly quiet. The faint ticking of the clock on the wall only deepened the stillness. Then, in the middle of the night, my phone rang, jolting me awake. The room was pitch dark save for the faint glow of the screen. My heart skipped a beat as I grabbed it, squinting at the time. 3:30 a.m. The name on the screen made my stomach flip. It was Jack, Olivia's coworker. Jack wasn't just some name from Olivia's workplace. We'd gone out to dinner once or twice as couples, Olivia and me with Jack and his wife Emma. We weren't close friends, but I'd always liked him well enough. When Jack's name popped up on my phone at 3:30 a.m., my first thought was that something serious had happened, probably at the party. Jack wasn't the type to reach out without a good reason, especially not at 3:30 a.m. I answered, my voice groggy but tense. "Hey Jack, what's going on? It's late." There was a pause, and then Jack's hesitant voice came through. Yeah. Happy New Year, Michael. Listen, man, I hate to call you like this, but I thought you should know something." My grip on the phone tightened, and I sat up in bed, fully awake now. "What is it?" "It's Olivia," he said cautiously. She's with Mr. Wallace right now, her boss." "What do you mean with him?" I asked, my voice icy. "They've been close all night, laughing, touching. I didn't think much of it at first, but then they disappeared together. I followed them and they went into his office, alone." The world spun. My mind screamed for me to deny it, but I couldn't ignore the sinking feeling in my gut. "You're sure about this?" "Yeah, man, I'm sorry. I thought you'd want to know." I didn't respond. I hung up without another word, my hands trembling as I swung my legs over the side of the bed and grabbed my keys. I drove to her office, the streets eerily empty as I sped through the dark, my mind racing faster than the car. The only sound was the pounding of my heart, each beat a mix of rage and dread. I had no idea what I was about to walk into, but I knew I couldn't sit at home and do nothing. I arrived at the building within 10 minutes, the engine of my car barely cooling as I parked in the empty lot. The party was still going on, the muffled sound of music and laughter spilling from the entrance as I approached. Jack was waiting near the elevators. "Michael," he whispered, looking pale. "Where are they?" I asked through clenched teeth. He nodded toward the corridor. "They're still in his office, end of the hall." I didn't waste a second. My legs carried me down the hallway, though each step felt heavier than the last. When I reached Wallace's office, I froze. The door was closed, but the blinds were slightly parted, offering a narrow view inside. My heart hammered in my chest as I peered through the crack, desperate to confirm what I already feared. For a moment, there was only silence, and then I heard it. Olivia's voice, soft at first, then unmistakable. A moan. My stomach twisted. I pulled my phone from my pocket, hands trembling, and hit the record button. I could feel the weight of the moment, the act of capturing this betrayal somehow both surreal and painfully necessary. Without thinking, I pushed open the door, bursting into the room. And there they were. Olivia, perched on the edge of the desk, and Wallace standing between her knees. Their lips met in a kiss that shattered the last pieces of my heart. "Olivia," I said, my voice cutting through the air like a knife. She jumped, her eyes wide with shock. "Michael, what the hell is this?" I demanded, my voice filled with rage. Wallace backed away, his face flushed and panicked. This isn't what it looks like," he stammered. "Is that so? What do you think I am, blind or stupid?" I snapped, the anger in my chest erupting like a volcano. "I see exactly what's going on. You're screwing my wife." "Michael, I can explain," Olivia began, tears already welling in her eyes. "Explain?" I barked, my voice trembling with fury. "You want to explain why you're fooling around with your boss while I'm at home waiting for you? Go ahead, Olivia. Enlighten me." She stepped toward me, her hands raised as if to calm me. "It was a mistake. I had a couple of drinks and Wallace and I were just enjoying the party. One thing led to another, and it happened. It didn't mean anything." "Didn't mean anything?" I laughed bitterly, the sound hollow and broken. "You threw away 7 years of marriage for nothing? That's your excuse?" It was unbelievable. They didn't even try to hide their faces when I was recording. No shame. Nothing. Then Wallace cleared his throat nervously. "Maybe we should—" "Shut up," I snarled, turning my glare on him. "Is my wife the only employee you're screwing, or do you make a habit of this? You're disgusting." I shoved my phone into my pocket, and without thinking, I lashed out. I swept my arm across his desk, sending papers, a laptop, and a framed photo crashing to the floor. Wallace flinched, raising his hands defensively. "Whoa, calm down, man," Wallace said, his voice shaking. But I wasn't calm. I was far from it. Before he could take another breath, I swung my fist and struck him square in the face. Wallace staggered backward, colliding with the desk before collapsing to the floor. "Michael, stop!" Olivia screamed, tears streaming down her face as she grabbed at my arm. I shook her off and moved toward Wallace again, my fist clenched. Before I could get another hit in, Jack burst into the office. "Michael, stop it, man!" Jack shouted, rushing toward me. He grabbed me by the shoulders, pulling me back with surprising strength. "This isn't worth it. Don't throw your life away over this piece of trash." Wallace groaned from the floor, blood trickling from his nose. "You're crazy," he muttered. "Crazy?" I snapped, still seething. "You're lucky I don't make you regret this even more." Jack stepped between us, his hand firmly on my chest. "Let it go, Michael. He's not worth it. Let the lawyers deal with him." Breathing hard, I turned away from Wallace and looked at Olivia. She stood there trembling, her face pale and streaked with tears. "We're done," I said, my voice cold and final. "First thing next week, I'll be filing for divorce." "Michael, please," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "I love you. I made a mistake, but we can fix this." "Enough," I snapped, cutting her off. "I don't want to hear another word from you. My lawyer will call you soon." Without another glance at either of them, I stormed out of the office, Jack following close behind. When I got home, the house felt like a stranger's. I couldn't stand to be there, surrounded by the memories we'd built together. I packed a suitcase with whatever clothes I could find, barely thinking, and left. I drove to a hotel and checked in, the silence of the room swallowing me whole. I sat on the edge of the bed for a while, letting the weight of everything settle in. Then, with cold resolve, I transferred every dollar from our joint accounts into my personal one. If Olivia wanted to play games, I wasn't going to make it easy for her. 2 days later, I contacted a divorce attorney. I wanted everything done quickly and cleanly with no chance for reconciliation. The evidence on my phone, combined with Jack's eyewitness account, made the case airtight. I filed for divorce on the grounds of adultery, ensuring Olivia would walk away with as little as possible. The news of the scandal spread quickly through Olivia's workplace. I decided to sue Wallace and the company for fostering an inappropriate work environment. Jack backed me up, providing evidence of Wallace's history of unethical behavior. The case made headlines, and Wallace resigned in disgrace. It turned out Olivia wasn't the only one. Several other women came forward with similar stories. A few days after Wallace's resignation, Olivia quit too. She tried reaching out to me several times in the weeks that followed, leaving tearful voicemails and sending long apologetic texts. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. The divorce was finalized within 3 months. Olivia moved out of the house and I sold it soon after. It was too full of ghosts to ever feel like home again. It wasn't easy to move on. The betrayal cut deeper than I ever imagined possible. And for a while, it felt like I'd never trust anyone again. But time has a way of healing wounds, even the deepest ones. Jack and Emma stayed in touch with me, checking in from time to time. Their support meant more than I could put into words. One evening, about a year after the divorce, I ran into someone new. Someone who reminded me that love doesn't have to be pain. She was kind, funny, and honest. And for the first time in a while, I felt hope. As for Olivia, she moved to another state to start fresh. After that, I never heard from her again. It was probably for the best. Sometimes, distance is the only way to truly heal. I don't know if I'll ever fully understand why Olivia did what she did, but one thing's clear. I couldn't pretend everything was fine, not after all that had happened. It was the hardest decision I've ever made, but I knew staying would only destroy me in the end. So, I walked away, even when it felt like my world was falling apart. And looking back, I realized that the toughest choices often lead to the most unexpected and ultimately better paths. Thank you for watching. I'll never forget the way her laughter sounded that night, the night she returned from a week-long business trip. It wasn't the laugh I used to love, the one that always made me smile no matter how bad my day was. This one was sharp, forced, careless. I could tell something was off the moment she stepped inside the door. But let me start from the beginning. Gail and I had been married for 9 years. We'd built a life together. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Her job had always been demanding. She'd worked long hours, and for the past few months it had gotten worse. She'd been working late at the office, traveling for business trips, always rushing around like there was never enough time for us. I didn't mind at first. She'd always been dedicated to her career, and I admired her drive. Besides, it was all worth it when she finally got that big promotion. We celebrated, of course. A nice dinner, a weekend away, anything to show her how proud I was. But as the days went by, I started noticing little things that made me wonder if there was more going on behind the scenes than just the promotion. Her phone was always glued to her hand, and she became protective of it, even when she left the room. She used to be so open with me, but now she'd hide her screen, take it to the bathroom, or step out to answer it. Then there was her sudden interest in the gym. She'd never been into fitness, but now she was going several times a week. And she came home with a tan darker than I'd ever seen her, like she'd been somewhere sunny for more than just a few hours. The biggest red flag came one night when she returned late from another business trip. I could see it in her. A forced casualness, her nervous energy, and most of all, guilt. I tried to brush it off, but the doubts kept creeping in. One night, her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I almost ignored it, but something pushed me to check. The text was from Spencer, her boss. My stomach sank. I didn't open it, but I didn't need to. Her flushed face told me enough. As time passed, more signs appeared. A strange perfume on her clothes, more late nights, and her distance. Each time I confronted her, she dismissed it, telling me I was overthinking. But deep down, I knew. Something was going on between her and Spencer, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. Then, Gail dropped the bombshell. "I've got another business trip coming up," she said over dinner, her voice light, almost too casual. "It's a week-long conference. Spencer will be there too." The mention of Spencer made my stomach turn. I didn't buy it for a second. It wasn't just the trip, it was the way she said it, like it was nothing out of the ordinary. My mind raced, piecing everything together. The late nights, the secrecy, the texts, and now this. I didn't say anything at first. I just nodded, trying to mask the anger and frustration bubbling up inside me. "Sounds great," I said, forcing a smile. But inside I knew exactly what was going on. And when she left, I made sure I wasn't going to be left in the dark anymore. The day she left for her trip, I hired a private investigator. I wasn't taking any chances. I needed the truth. A few days passed and I got the first report. The investigator had followed them, Gail and Spencer, down to the resort. He'd taken photos from the beach, from the bar, from a fancy restaurant. The pictures came in one after another, and each one was worse than the last. There they were, standing close together, laughing, their bodies inches apart. Then came a shot of them hugging, intimate, almost like they had no care in the world. And then the worst one. A picture of them kissing by the pool, their arms wrapped around each other. I stared at the photos, my heart sinking with each one. I hadn't needed confirmation, but now I had it. She was cheating on me with her boss, Spencer. All the signs, all the gut feelings, were right. I sat there for a long time, not sure what to do next. The anger I felt was cold, sharp. But there was something else too, a sense of relief. Now I knew. Now I had proof. And with that, everything changed. I went to a lawyer the next day. I had to. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. The truth was undeniable now. The evidence was clear. I'd been married to a woman who didn't value me, who was willing to betray me for a man who wasn't even worth her time. The lawyer was quick to get things moving. I pulled out the prenup we had signed before we got married. She'd get nothing, absolutely nothing. The terms were clear, and no matter how much she tried to contest it, the clause was ironclad. If we divorced, she'd walk away with what she came into the marriage with, and that was it. I felt no guilt, no hesitation. I was doing the right thing. The day of her return from the business trip finally came. I had been waiting for this moment, the moment I would confront her. She walked through the door, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor, like she hadn't just spent a week with Spencer. Like everything was fine. Like she hadn't been gone at all. "Hey, babe," Gail said, tossing her bag onto the chair and kicking off her shoes. She didn't even glance at me. Her laughter, though, it sounded forced, hollow, as if she was trying to convince herself everything was normal. I was sitting at the kitchen table, stirring my drink, watching her. The way she moved, too fast, almost frantic, was just another confirmation of what I already knew. She stopped suddenly, her laughter fading when her eyes landed on the dining room table. The photo. It was there. A picture of us on our wedding day. We looked happy back then. Her in that stunning white dress, me in my sharp suit. We were both grinning like we had the world in our hands. But tonight, that photo wasn't just a reminder of happier times. I'd made sure of that. I had torn it in half, and not just that, I'd also torn up our marriage certificate. The pieces were scattered around the table, like the remnants of a lie that had finally been exposed. Gail froze. Her smile disappeared. Her face went pale. She stared at the photo like she had seen a ghost. What is this?" she whispered, her voice shaking. I leaned back in my chair, my arms crossed, not moving a muscle. "Why don't you tell me, Gail?" She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Her eyes darted around the room, clearly scrambling to figure out how I had found out. She was panicking. "Thomas, I don't," she stammered, but I could see the cracks in her calm facade. The confident, put-together wife I'd known was gone. In her place was someone who was desperate to cover up the truth. "Don't play dumb with me," I said, my voice steady but cold. "You've been lying to me for months. The business trips, the late nights at the office, that sudden obsession with your gym sessions. You think I didn't notice?" I pointed at the photo again. "And then there's this." I pulled out my phone and started swiping through pictures. I'd gathered them all. The ones that had been taken at that resort. The ones from the fancy restaurant. The ones with her and Spencer, holding hands like they were a couple. Gail's lips trembled as she tried to find the words. But no matter how hard she searched, I could see the truth was already written all over her face. The mask she'd carefully worn for so long was slipping. I can explain," she finally said, her voice cracking. But I wasn't buying it. Not after everything. "Explain?" I repeated, the bitter laugh slipping out before I could stop it. "What exactly do you need to explain, Gail? That you've been sleeping with your boss behind my back while I've been here, working my butt off to keep this house running?" She shook her head frantically, as if denying it would make it all go away. No, Thomas, you don't understand. It's not like that." I cut her off, slamming the phone down on the table with a force that made her flinch. "Not like that? Really?" I pulled up the first photo on my phone, a shot of her and Spencer at the beach, arms around each other, grinning like they didn't have a care in the world. "Then what's this, huh? What's this, if it's not like that?" She opened her mouth to speak, but the words wouldn't come. I could see her fighting it, trying to spin some excuse, but nothing could cover the truth. "I trusted you, Gail," I said, my voice starting to rise. "You lied to me for months. What, did you think I wouldn't notice? Did you think I wouldn't figure it out?" Her eyes filled with tears, but I felt nothing. Not sympathy, not pity, just an anger so cold it made my chest tighten. I had spent too much time feeling like a fool to care about her tears now. "You were sneaking around, pretending everything was fine," I continued. "But all along, You were with him. Spencer. While I was out here trying to make sure we could afford the life you wanted, you were out there living a different one. Gail took a shaky step toward me, her hands reaching out like she thought I might give in if she touched me. Thomas, please, she begged. I know I messed up. I was confused. I never meant to hurt you. Stop, I snapped, holding up a hand. I don't want to hear it. It's too late for apologies. I stood up and paced, trying to hold on to my composure. My heart was a mess, but I wasn't going to let her see that. Not now. I had already made my decision. You've destroyed everything, I said, my voice calmer now, but the cold anger still edged every word. And now I'm done. Gail looked at me, her face pleading, but there was no changing my mind. I've already filed for divorce, I told her, pulling out a folder from the drawer. I tossed it on the table in front of her. The papers are in my lawyer's hands. They'll be sent to you tomorrow. Don't bother contesting it. You can thank the prenup for that. Her face went pale again. She opened her mouth to say something, but no sound came out. The prenup? She whispered, her voice barely audible, the panic evident in her eyes. Yeah, I said, leaning against the table, folding my arms. It was solid. You'll get nothing more than what you came into the marriage with. She reached for the papers, her hands trembling. Please, Thomas, don't do this, she begged, her voice breaking. We can work this out. I swear, I'll do anything. Therapy, counseling. I shook my head, cutting her off. No, it's too late for that. The trust is gone, Gail. I can't go back. You've already destroyed everything we built together. It's over. Her tears didn't faze me anymore. I had nothing left to give. I stared at her coldly for a moment, my resolve hardening with every second that passed. I've got one more surprise for you, I said, my voice quieter now, but no less final. She looked at me, her face a mixture of desperation and confusion. What do you mean? I didn't say another word. I just motioned toward the hallway. Go to the bedroom, you'll see. She hesitated, but eventually she did as I said. I followed her down the hall, looking forward to seeing her reaction. When we entered the bedroom, her eyes immediately fell on the sight before her. All of her things packed neatly into boxes. Clothes, jewelry, shoes, everything she had brought into this house. She froze, staring at the boxes in disbelief, the reality of the situation sinking in. What's this? She whispered, almost as if she couldn't comprehend it. I crossed my arms, standing in the doorway. Those are your things, Gail. Take them and leave. I don't want you here anymore. I'm done. Her face crumpled, but I didn't soften. There was nothing left for me to feel. Not for her. Not after what she had done. Gail didn't say a word. She picked a few of her things from the boxes, her hands shaking as she stuffed them into a bag, and left. The silence that filled the house after she walked out was almost suffocating, but it was the silence of closure. It was done. But I wasn't finished. Not yet. I wasn't going to let her walk away from this unscathed. She had thought she could ruin everything I worked for and just move on without consequences. But I wasn't going to let her. I sent the photos, the ones of her and Spencer, the ones from the resort, the beach, the ones where they were holding hands, laughing, kissing. I sent them to her parents, her friends, everyone who had ever known us. I wanted them all to see what kind of woman she really was, the woman who had destroyed our life for a lie. But I didn't stop there. I filed a lawsuit against Spencer and sent the evidence to HR. Within 2 days he quit, his reputation in ruins. Gail wasn't spared either. The photos spread like wildfire. The scandal was all anyone talked about at her office. Gossip ran rampant, and every corner she turned, people whispered behind her back. It was a daily reminder of the choices she had made, the life she had thrown away for a few moments of pleasure. Eventually, she quit too. The divorce was swift. With the prenup and overwhelming evidence, she walked away with nothing. The house, the savings, everything was mine. She became a shadow of herself, abandoned by friends and family. She moved away, trying to escape the scandal, but her reputation followed. Spencer disappeared too, never recovering from the fallout. As for me, I moved on, stronger, wiser, and free from the lies. The past was behind me. I wasn't looking back. Thank you for watching.